Hello, friends. Welcome to Be Waste Wise. Today we have Rosa Arias with us, and she is the founder of the DNOSES project. And this is our, and we've been doing these webinars with ISWA since early this year to be able to disseminate their knowledge to a wide base of audience through easily accessible and consumable for content formats. And we've also helped Asian Development Bank and NWH Global also disseminate knowledge around the world. So if you're someone who's looking for a knowledge partner in waste management, then definitely think about Be Waste Wise. We can organize webinars for you so that you can reach a lot of people. And we started doing this in 2013, and every year we organize something called the Global Dialogue on Waste, and we have this year's Global Dialogue on Waste starting on September 4th and September 5th. You can find all the information that's needed on the website, or you can do a quick Google search on 2018 Global Dialogue on Waste, and you'll find links on where you can register for them. And the themes this year are new systems for North America and learning across the Atlantic. So go check it out, check all the speakers that are speaking, and also register for the event. Now, today's webinar will be talking about the DNOSES project, and Rosa will tell you about the citizen science part of it, and the timeline and what she's looking for in project partners and all of that good stuff. And before we introduce Rosa, let me just remind you that we'll be taking questions throughout the webinar. So if you have any questions or comments for Rosa, make use of this opportunity to ask her so that you can get them answered right away. And after all of that, if you still have more questions, we'll provide you the contact details of Rosa so that you can get in touch with her and then learn more. With that, Rosa, welcome to Be Waste Wise, and how are you?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm fine, thank you. And also I would like to welcome all my DNOSES partners that are listening, like Nora, Simone, and Cynthia, and of course the ISWA team and yourself. Big thank you for organizing this webinar.
No problem. Thanks so much. Thanks for being with us. I think it's a great project that you're doing. I've been really impressed since I came to know about it. So can you, where are you joining from? I know you're not in Barcelona.
No, I'm in Galicia, in a tiny village. This is the northwest of Spain. Still finishing my holidays, but I'm here with you.
Right. So Rosa actually is in her vacation, but she, agreed to do this webinar in that. So that's really, great. But she also had to find a place with the right internet connection. So that took a while, clearly. Yeah.
Yes. I'm in a driving school, by the way, but I have my driving license with me, no problem.
All right, awesome. Rosa, could you tell us about the project? Why did you start it, and how did it start?
Yes, I've been working in odor pollution since 2004 in 2 out of the 3 or 4 main companies in Spain dealing with it, applying like the traditional methods to measure odors at an industrial level. We are talking about environmental odors, not indoor odors. Okay, so basically dealing with the annoyance that they cause to the citizens living in the surroundings of the odor emitting industries. Most of them, or many of them, are waste managers because they were like my first clients ever, and of course they are very smelly. So I know this all the waste management part very well because I've been working in the all kind of plants. And well, I've seen like a lot of unfair situations because there is no transparency with the citizens. There is no regulation that protect the citizens at a global level. There are some efforts at maybe regional or even local level, but not at the global level. And there is no like a common regulatory framework for others. So what happens is that mainly, if you are a citizen living next to an emitting industry, you are usually unprotected, and nobody is telling you what's going on, or if the industries don't have goodwill, or if the city council don't receive enough pressure from the citizens and force the industries to do something, then the situation can go on for many, many years. And that's why this is one reason that I was thinking about developing this project. Another reason is that all how you measure odors traditionally is with people. We have the best sensor to measure odor, which is our own noses. This is a clear advantage to apply citizen science in this case. And also traditional studies like olfactometry or field observations fail to provide real-time data. So what we can do with the citizens that are already living in the surroundings of the areas of the emitting industries is train them and give them some tools that they can use to record other observations in real time for the first time. And this is what how the idea of DNOSES started a couple of years ago. So we developed an app which is called OdourCollect, uh, for the citizens to be able to record what they were smelling, where at the place where they were smelling it, and at the time where they were smelling it. So the idea is that we can map collaboratively with the citizens the situation in an area, and after that, we can validate the data as other experts. We can incorporate metadata to see the dispersion and verify origins, for example. And we can also talk with the industries to see what was going on in the moment of the episode so that we can find out like good practices or change maybe operations in the plant so we can change our management or improve our management to reduce the nuisance. This is the idea behind the project.
Right. So I think looks like once a community moves closer to a facility or a facility moves to a community, once that happens, it's really not possible for you to, and if something bad happens with the odors, it's really not possible to measure it or kind of accurately validate that it's happening. And then therefore, once you can't measure, you can't manage it. So that
Yeah,
so it's like there is no mechanism right now to be able to do something like this.
you can measure it, but only not in real time. I mean, and you always measure it in the emission, so inside the plant. So what you do with the traditional way of measuring odor pollution is you go to the site and you take samples in the emitting points, like the chimneys or the basins or wherever you find out that is causing the emissions in that plant specifically. And then you go there one day and you take your samples because it's an expensive thing to do to take the samples and everything. So you have punctual values of emission for that activity that you then use to estimate the impact in the area with a dispersion model. So you
Mhm.
have to take your weather data. If you find some good data, that's better. If not, then it would be less accurate. Then
Right.
you have also the uncertainty of the dispersion model, and also then you only have you are reliable in one set of other emission measurements. So for with that you can calculate like a mean average impact map so that you can see the average levels of nuisance that or of odors that are getting into the citizens where they live. But these also are estimates. So it's not possible to see how they perceive the annoyance in real time with the traditional measurements. That's
Right.
why we reverse the situation, and instead of starting like with a top-down approach from the industry and then calculating the emission, we start with the emission values and we go backwards in time and apply the same dispersion models, but for that exact moment, so that we can see what was going on in the industry when the citizens were perceiving the nuisance with the others,
Mm-hmm.
like changing the situation.
Yeah, that brings me to some more points. So, if a facility has to do these order studies, then it's really expensive for them. They have to bring people from outside somewhere else. But as opposed to for you, the people are right there in the neighborhoods. You don't have to.
Exactly. Yeah, it will decrease the cost. Yeah, clearly of the
So
studies.
it's a huge cost decrease, and this brings me to another question, which is so you're saving a lot of money for the facilities by doing this. So how do the results from your um, model, how do they compare with the results that they would have gotten otherwise? I'm sure they have some kind of scientific method that is
Yes, yes.
already dealt with for that. So how does that how do the results compare?
We will do that during the project. We are taking, because this is the first time that this methodology is, in fact, created and applied. Is the like pioneer project. So we are doing 10 different pilots, case studies in 10 different countries. We will be working in different areas with different other problems. For sure, some of them will come from waste management facilities. Some others will be different, like pigs, for example, or wastewater treatment stations or others. And we will be testing our methodology and comparing it also with the traditional methods. Of course, we will be, since we have two universities involved in the project with olfactometry laboratories and so on, we can complement the measurements of the citizens with olfactometry measurements or even sensor measurements, or we will see in each case how we do it. But for sure, we will be validating. And in fact, we will be applying, except for the citizen observations, which is like the good thing, the new thing, we will be applying the same dispersion models, but backwards instead of, from the emission source to the impact area. We will be applying it from the impact area to the emission source to see if they match what citizens are perceiving and what is being emitted at the industries. So we will be applying, in fact, the same thing, but in a different way.
Right. So it is a very reliable model, even for facility managers. They don't have to worry about the quality of the data, or that some kind of mistake or some kind of yeah. So it's reliable data that you provide them, and it's verified by academia later
Yes.
on. So it's very
Yes.
reliable. Okay. All right. And since you said you'll be doing 10 pilot projects, can I ask you, where are you working right now? Where do you have partners, and where are you looking for partners?
Yes, we have 9 countries in our project. We are 15 partners, a 15 partners consortium. This is a European project, by the way, funded by the Horizon 2020 program, which is like the main research program in Europe. And we have 8 countries from Europe and 1 extra country, which is Chile. The countries are Spain, Italy, Portugal, Greece, Bulgaria, the United Kingdom, Austria, Germany, and Chile. So at the beginning, we were going to do 8 case studies in the countries inside our consortium, but they will be probably multiplying to 12 because of the big interest that it's getting generated by the project. And we still have at least 2 locations to be selected in 2 different countries. So there are opportunities for other countries that could be interested in joining our project for a pilot to join us. What we will be doing with them will be to perform these pilots in their countries if they provide us with a location. And we, in all the locations, we work together with the academic. So the other experts, the citizens, so it will be necessary to engage with the community in the area that wants to participate in the pilot, but also we need to have the support of the industries that are emitting the odors in the area, because we want to work very closely with them. I mean, we will be providing data, but also they will need to provide us with data to validate our data. So to find these situations to be improved, and also with the environmental authorities, which usually are like the local city council, which usually has the competencies for odor pollution, but it can work also at the local level, regional level, or whoever is responsible for the odor pollution in that area. So we always work with this quadruple helix model with the 4 actors. So if someone is interested, what we for sure will need is to have the engagement of these four stakeholders in the area.
Right. So, friends, Rosa and the DNOSES project are looking for pilot communities. And if your community is having trouble with odor, use this opportunity to ask any questions that you have, so that you understand whether you can join the project. And after that, we'll of course get you in touch with Rosa. So take this time. We have 30 more minutes in the webinar. So take this time to type any questions or comments that you have. And with that, Rosa, could you tell us about the status of the project? Where are you in the project implementation?
Yes,
And
yes.
what's the plan?
Yes, the project started in April this year, and it will last for 3 years. So we just started, in fact, and we are developing, improving the citizen science tools for the citizens. So OdourCollect will be out probably in a month with a much more improved version for everybody to use. We are building the International Odor Observatory, where all the information in relation to odor pollution will be mapped and available to solve this lack of transparency. So all of this will be open data, so everybody will have the access. And in fact, the pilots were supposed to start in a year time, according to the initial calendar. So it could be like around next September. But because all the partners are really excited, and and we think that it's time to start, we will be probably starting the Pioneer pilot now in September or maximum October in Barcelona, which will be the first one. And also we have another 5 Pioneer countries inside our consortium, which will be also starting as soon as possible. And then in a year time, then a maximum, we want to start the rest of the pilots. So if someone in the audience wants to join us for a pilot, just contact us, and we will put you in the calendar. You will not be the first ones, because we will work like this, like 5 or 6 pilots first, and then in a year, the remaining 5 or 6 pilots. But you will get to do it.
All right, sounds good. And what happens after 3 years? I mean, I'm sure the funding, that's what you know until then. But what's your plan after the 3 years? It might be too early to ask, but still, what are you thinking? And will the facilities be a part of paying for something like this? What's the revenue model that you're looking at?
Yeah, in fact, I'm creating a startup for exploiting the project results, because, of course, we will provide guidelines for replicability after our pilots are done and everything else. But for sure, we can replicate the model in other communities with other problems. And the idea would be to do consultancy in other pollution, as I've been doing in the past, but applying our new methodology, and hopefully reducing the cost of the traditional other studies for the facilities. So that would be like my model. And also, I want to replicate the same citizen science model for tackling other environmental issues or societal challenges that can be also helped by the data gathered by with citizen science tools.
Right. So you want to scale this and then
Mhm.
have a proper revenue model, make it financially sustainable, and then get into other environmental problems.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and of course, the International Odor Observatory will survive, hopefully, after the project. We will look for more funding, or from the private projects that we may start doing, then we will get some money to make it sustainable over time, because this is something that it's really necessary to put odor pollution in the map. And our ultimate goal, in fact, it's to influence other policies and regulations, so that citizens can be protected in a suitable way for everybody, not just for the citizens, but also manageable for the industries and the local environmental authorities and everyone else. But something needs to be done. It's time, to stop this other pollution being ignored, and this is one of our ultimate goals with the project.
No, I agree. I mean, odor pollution is such a big issue. I mean, it's such a huge impact on quality of life around the world. And in countries like India, if you have odor pollution, that also means that you have other kinds of pollution associated.
Mm.
And odor pollution is one of the best ways for you to understand that there is something else going wrong, throughout in the facilities process. And so it's like an indicator of something
Mhm.
wrong at the facility in cities in countries like India. And I've seen many facilities which have failed, and they really impact the lives of people surrounding, in
Yes.
health and
Hmm.
house flies and mosquitoes in everyone's houses. So it's a really big problem that is generally not talked about. So I'm really happy to see this happening. Could you? I was thinking. Um, citizen science also requires some kind of training or some kind of guides for them to understand how to do this. I'm sure the app has good directions, a good guide on how to do this, but how would they know what they are smelling? I know our noses are really good and our brains are kind of wired to understand what kind of smells, but when it comes to certain chemical smells which we're not used to, how can they understand what they're smelling?
Yeah, in fact, this is something that it's standardized. There is one standard which is used to be German. It's still German, but now it has been adopted at the European level, which deals with field observations with trained panelists, and it explains how you should train people to participate in other studies. So we will be using the same methodology. In fact, I've been applying this methodology for many years when working with traditional other studies methodologies. And the most important thing is to go with them to the other sources and explain them also the processes, what is going on there, how the odor is being generated, and explain them, like, for example, in a waste management facility, you have the fresh waste smell, then the leachate, then the biogas or the compost. And the good news is that these odors are really different between themselves. So if you take the citizens to the other source and they smell it, from where it is generated, this creates an image in your mind that you never forget. So then it's very easy for us because our sense of smell, it's really a good one. I mean, we have it's the most complex of our senses, and we have a lot of tools. And as you said, our brain remembers very well when to smell its type of smell. If you do this training regularly with them, and then you check, for example, in the first observations or in the first weeks of observation, you check with them if they are really identifying correctly the odors, then they are very capable of doing of identifying different types of odors and doing very good observations. So what we will be doing with our pilots, we will go there also first engage with the community. We will use a lot of different engagement mechanisms also to motivate everyone, not only the neighbors, but also the local businesses, for example, or hotels or others that can be in the area. So we will work differently with different engagement strategies, but at the same time with the same objective, which is to motivate everybody to start doing observations and also train them. And if the industries are collaborating, we will take them to the industry, inside the industry, so that they will never forget the odor they are smelling, and then they will be able to recognize it once they are far away from the source at their homes, for example. That's the idea.
All right, that makes sense. I think that's really good. So we have some questions coming in. The first question, it's not a question really, it's a comment, but I think this leads to something that we've been talking before the panel started. You could respond to that. It's from Rodrigo Atilano. He's joining us from Mexico City, and he says that there are 12 transfer stations, and it is very common, and the odor is very common and nearby, and an average of 1,000 tons are managed in each station, which are, since these are transfer stations, they have to be in places where people live. And he says that it is a problem with no solution right now. So if the transfer station management or maybe the city administration came to you and asked, how do we control or manage these odors? And transfer stations are places where there isn't too much infrastructure, but there is a lot of waste coming in. How would you, respond? How would you help someone like that?
We will need to study the case, of course, But usually, in general, how you control odors is you confine the odor source somehow. If these transfer stations are already confined and not open, then what thing that you can do is to put the building under the pressure, so you can avoid air going out of the building, and also you can conduct this air to a treatment facility like a biofilter, or maybe some active carbon that you can install there if the case is very big, like the problem is big. Or if not, maybe we can analyze the operation of these transfer stations to see how they work, because many times they work with open doors, for example, because of the maybe inside, because of the huge amount of waste. There are not very good conditions for the workers because of the heat and also the humidity, and many of them work with open doors, which is a really bad practice in relation to other emissions. So maybe we find out that this is what they do, and if we close the door, then we solve very much the situation. Or let's see, it depends. For example, in some other cases, I've seen that the trucks going in and out, for example, the stations or the facilities, if the inside there are no clean conditions, maybe there is a lot of leachate coming from the waste that is getting accumulated there. Then when they go out, they just take in the wheels all the leachate with them, and they just dirt all the streets and the roads next to the station, and this is causing also a lot of smell and a lot of complaints. So sometimes it's not necessary to apply like corrective measurements, which require an investment such as depression and then treatment. But if you analyze the operation and identify some good practices that you can apply, the complaints can be reduced quite a lot.
Do you have any other examples from other facilities that you've helped or that could get help from the NOSES project?
Yes, I mean, all facilities that are emitting odors are susceptible of being studied by a project like ours. I mean, what we want to do is to exactly find these situations from the two factors that make that are well. Odor pollution depends basically on two factors. One is the odor emissions per se, that as I was explaining, they can be reduced by confining the odors and treating them in some facilities like a scrubber, biofilter, or wherever you prefer for the exact situation. But also another factor which is very important are the meteorological conditions. So these two factors combined is what cause the odors, because maybe you are emitting exactly the same amount of odor, and one day is terrible because the dominant wind is blowing toward the citizens, and other day nothing is happening.
Yeah.
So this is also something that we want to identify with our project, the bad dispersion conditions for the emissions. So with that, you can also change operations in your plant to reduce the complaints. Because, for example, if you have planned some discharge of waste, or maybe your trucks are coming in the bad timing for dispersion, maybe you can change the operation, and with that you reduce a lot the complaints. That's another example of things that can be done to reduce the odor emissions in any emitting facility.
Right. And we have another question from Bo Wayne. And he's asking, he would like to know how to be a partner of the DNOSES project, but I think you already responded to that. And the answer would be to get in touch with you.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. So, Bowen, just get in touch with Rosa, and then she'll, let you know how to be a partner, and then take it from there. And he also has other questions, but I think you've already answered them in the webinar already. And talking about examples of where the DNOSES project could be very impactful. You told me in our test run about a city where there was a lot of development happened without knowing that there were odors in the vicinity, and then
Mhm.
there was a lot of investment put in by the city, and then a
Mhm.
lot of people moved in. There was there was a lot of money put into this whole process, and then now they can't do anything about the facility. So could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, yes, this is a typical case of other pollution being ignored. I mean, my recommendation would be that if you are a waste manager, the first thing you do before you decide the location of your plant is to check where your citizens are, your neighbors, and the weather conditions that you have there, like the dominant winds, so that you can estimate, even do some theoretical study regarding odor pollution, so to see if you will be impacting the neighbors or not, because it can become like a nightmare after you do all the installation and everything else. In this case, this was Barcelona. Barcelona is a city with around 2 billion inhabitants, three and a half in total in the metropolitan area. And this plan deals with around half of the waste of the city, so quite a lot. And it was built next to an incinerator and in an area that was really depressed by 2000, early 2000 or so. A lot of gypsy communities lived there, so it was like poor area, but a nice area in fact, because it was by the beach and next to, in fact, now is like the technological center of the city. This area has become. But in 2004, they decided, the city council decided to create a new space there, which was called the forum area, to perform there or implement an event, a very big event, which was called the Forum of the Cultures. So a lot of people were coming from around the world. They clean up the area, so they move all the gypsy communities away from there, and then refurbish and invest a lot, as you said, building the new forum area and so on. But they didn't took into account that there was really next to waste incinerator. Then later they installed there an eco park, which is an integral treatment facility for waste as well. It has also the wastewater treatment facility, the second biggest in Catalonia, which is treating also half of the wastewater in Barcelona, and also a sludge plant for the sludge being generated in the wastewater treatment facility. So you have a lot of odors there, depending on the time of the day and also on the weather conditions. You can smell fresh waste, fresh wastewater, biogas, or leachate, or a sludge from the wastewater. So it's really terrible. I mean, it smells every day and at every time. And this is one of probably it will be our pioneer pilot happening in the area. We're still negotiating it, but 90% sure that we will be working there. And the thing is that they didn't take this into account, and they decided to build this forum without taking into account the others. So a lot of new people moved there. Now there is a new university campus there, a lot of hotels, conference places, very nice places. New rich people coming there, like Russians, Italians, and Argentinians, like buying these 1 billion euro beautiful houses in front of the beach, but with a lot of smell in their houses. So everybody is complaining. And this is a typical example of bad management with others, because now there is like a citizen platform complaining every 2 days in the press and so on. But what can you do if you just started it without thinking in the consequence? This is one example.
Right. More than bad, I mean, it is definitely bad management, but I think it's also bad planning. Um,
Yes, yes. Bad
uh,
planning for the city, for sure.
yeah. In situations like this, then a project like DNOSES would be extremely useful, and then could save a lot of money for everyone
Mhm.
that's involved. And it also gives a great, I think, platform for people to, for example, you said that there's a citizens forum which complains every few days, but then
Mhm.
for them to be able to do it in a much more scientific way, which
Mhm.
actually results in action, I think the DNOSES project would be a great platform for them to do that. And another question that I had is this place that you were, in Barcelona, is it a residential community or is it mostly a tourist community? I'm asking that question because I'm trying to understand who lives there for how long, so that'll also lead to downloading the app and training and all of that logistics. So
Yes, there are a lot of people living there. So there is a residential area, but with two different profiles of citizens. Like the old Gypsy community still is living there, a bit far away from the area, but still there. But they have been suffering with the odors for historically for many years. And now we have the new rich people with they are totally different social status. This is also a challenge for us. We also like the area because of that, because we want to approach them and engage them and motivate them differently, but with their expectations, managing the expectations with different levels of social backgrounds. And also there are a lot of hotels because of this conference area. There is a museum. This is the campus of the university, the Polytechnical University in Catalonia, a new campus going on there. So we also want to engage students. In fact, chemical engineering is being taught there. So we hope to engage some chemical engineering students that help us analyze the data and create impact and data and so on. So it's very complex area, but a lot of residents in there.
well, chemical engineers are the best engineers because I'm a chemical engineer.
Me too. So yes, I agree. I agree.
All right. So, friends, last 8 minutes or 7 minutes for questions. If you have any questions, please use the live chat window there under the video stream, and then let us know. And we people in the live chat are saying that they're chemical engineers too. So lots of chemical.
Great.
All right. So,
We are all in the same page.
yeah. Hey Vivek, how are you? So that's Vivek, someone who's worked with us. All right. Are there any final thoughts on what's going to happen in the next few months for you, and what kind of response are you getting? And so just tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, we are getting a lot of positive answers from many people, but I'm sure that there will be some reticences, especially from industry probably, and also from environmental authorities perhaps, because because this has been under-regulated. Now they will see that it's like, okay, another thing I need to measure in my plant, odors. But as you said, this can be used as a sign of alert of bigger environmental problems behind. So for me, it has to be seen like an opportunity to improve management and relationships with the communities and transparency and so on. So I really encourage everybody to don't be afraid of the results. We are not against the industry. We are not against the environmental authorities. We are not, of course, we are supporting the citizens, but we are supporting all the actors. We want to, install like a sense of co-responsibility also in the citizens because we all generate waste. Someone needs to deal with it. So they will see that it's not easy to treat waste, that it's necessary for the environment, and someone has to do it. And if it's next to their place, let's try to find and co-create local solutions that can be good for everybody there, reduce the nuisance. But let's do it all together. And this is our model to work with all the actors and improve all the relationships between each other. This is our main way of thinking, and we hope that industries don't get, pushed behind or scared of just thinking, oh no, I will need to measure odors and I will need to implement corrective measures, and these are very expensive and so on. But if we understand the problem well, it necessarily maybe is not so expensive. It doesn't have to do or maybe doesn't require an investment in some cases because with good practices and so and improving the operational practices in the facility, it can be really reduced and everybody will be happier. So my message is like positive, like please join us with like a transparency spirit that and participate with us, because what we want in fact is to improve the situation in fact for the industries, which are the ones that are emitting, and but they are really necessary for all of us. So we are not against them, but in favor, in fact.
Right. No, I hear you. I mean, that's such an important message, Rosa, because, for most of these facilities, which create so many jobs and then actually move the economy forward and make our lives better, it's also, they're doing such an awesome job, but it's also important for, them to be good neighbors,
Hmm.
and have that operating license not just from regulators but also from the neighbors. I think it's such an important message, and we should, of course, all of us think about collective action, what you've been referring to.
Hmm. Okay.
Given the scale of challenges that we face today, given the depth of different the systemic changes that we need, I believe collective action is one of the ways in which we could achieve those goals. So great
Mhm.
message, great positive message, and I think everyone should join to make our planet better. So thank you so much, Rosa. Do you have anything else to say before we end the call?
No, we just encourage everybody to follow the project, and also just to let you know that in this spirit of co-creation, we want to co-create everything with everybody in the project. So we are in the process of designing the International Odour Observatory. So we welcome any suggestions of things that you want to see inside the Odour Observatory, because for sure we will map, like for example, places where regulatory actions have been taken, places with other problems that we can work with our methodology and so on. Good practices, places with good practices, or industries that are doing, efforts on to reduce overpollution. Also, we will want to, build like a library, and also of resources of scientific articles and so on. Also, corrective measurements, abatement techniques, equipment, etc., so that everybody that wants to deal with overpollution have a references where to look at to see what are the options that they can apply. And also, we will be building the Odorpedia, so that we will be, opening all the concepts to everybody else, so that everybody, can start understanding what odor pollution is, and participating in the project. So we welcome any suggestions. It will be co-created. We will be launching like consultations and so on. So if you join our newsletter or social networks or everything else that you want, or contact me directly, we will appreciate it very much, because it
All right.
will be like a common effort that we
All
want
right.
to do.
All right, great. Wonderful. Thanks, Rosa. So, whoever you are and wherever you are in the world, I think you have a lot of opportunities to join the DNOSES project and make a contribution to it. So, please get in touch with Rosa, look at their website, and follow them. And before we leave, I just want to remind you that our 2018 Global Dialogue on Waste is starting on September 4th, and it will also be on September 5th. And we have some of the best speakers from around North America and Europe, because that's our focus this year, because of the kinds of changes that are happening in the recycling end markets, and the kinds of stakeholders that are getting involved in recycling. So please check it out, register for the program, so that you can hear and learn from some of the best people in the sector. So with that, thank you so much, and have a good day, good evening, and good night. Bye.
Bye.